This is a Get Acquainted video done by LCE Graphics. You can reach us at 1-800-634-2176 or on the web at lcegraphics.com. Now this is a Get Acquainted video of the Horizon SPF10 to SPF and FC11 and SPF10 and FC10 booklet maker with trimmer. And we're going to go through all the functions and what all the knobs do and what they're for, starting with the entry rollers here. This has two with weights. You loosen the weights, you can slide them up and down. We're increasing or decreasing the pressure on the rollers. And usually you increase the pressure when you're running something thicker. These are screws that you loosen to move them back and forth. This is your entry landing plate, your entry roller, and secondary entry roller. Now these rollers are motorized and driven by the unit here. It has a motor internally. These are paper guides. What this does, this is important to put right here where the back jogger is. But what that does is when the sheets come in, it pushes them down. Sometimes air can get underneath them and cause a problem. It pushes them down and then allows it to jog a lot better. And these are also paper guides which clip on. When we ship them, we usually take them off and put them in a Ziploc bag, so be sure and reinstall them. And also, we have these guides here. These are paper guides. And what they do is they help guide the set into the booklet maker and underneath the stitch heads. This little knob here is for faster or slower speed of the drive belt. And all that does is increase the speed of the rollers so that it exits the booklet quicker. But most of the time it runs in the left position, which is your standard position. On the booklet maker itself, you have this knob here, which is actually used to loosen the side guide. This is the side guide that moves back and forth and jogs. Every time the set comes in, this moves over and jogs the paper together, so when it staples, your booklet looks nice and neat. This is your main entry belt into the stitcher. It has one of them, and this belt either runs all the time or runs sporadically as you set the switch on the control panel. Right here it runs all the time. Over to the left it runs constantly. I prefer to leave it running constantly unless you have an issue with it scratching the bottom sheet, which hardly ever happens, but if it does, then you can shut that off, and it'll only advance each time it runs. This center roller here that you see, this plastic roller, that's your eject roller. It's solenoid controlled. It comes down after the stitch heads have stapled and ejects the booklet out of the stitcher into the folder. These are your stitch heads. We cover them in the manuals. It's best to just look at the manuals for the details about the stitch heads. But adjusting them into position, on the back side here you have these handles that you loosen. You loosen the stitch head and then you slide the stitch head into position. Underneath here is a unit called the clincher. And as you can see, you have a groove here in the top plate and a groove in the clincher plate. And you just line the stitch head so it's centered on the clincher plate, and that way you're always assured of having the stitcher and the clincher lined up. These are removable guides. They snap out of place. What they are is they're bridges, and you use them when you're running 11 by 17 or wider papers so that there's not a large gap between the supports for the sheet. Otherwise you can get like a belly in there, and then when you jog, it won't jog as well as you'd like. And that's what those are there for. And these are your wire guides, which, you know, they'll be explained in the stitch head section. Your spool holders. Now what this does is applies tension to the spool. You can apply a little more tension or less. You don't want the spool to overspin, but at the same time you don't want it to be such a drag on there that it actually has a difficult time pulling the wire, which can cause problems with varied stitch length. This center guide right here is held on there by this wing nut. This wing nut is what you loosen to move your center eject roller in position. And this will be covered later in a setup video that we've done. This is an eject roller. It should run all the time when the unit's running. This is your stopper. This pops up and down, controlled by this solenoid right here in this box. And when the set is stitched, this moves upward, the booklet is exited into the folder. These are guides that are removable by loosening this thumb screw right here. You'll also probably find them in a Ziploc bag as well. But it's good to reinstall those. This is another paper guide that's mounted on here with a thumb screw. and that helps guide the set. Anytime you see those paper guides, they're there for a reason. They're there to help the sheet, you know, not levitate or lift up, because when the sheet starts moving forward at high velocity, wind can get underneath the cover and cause the cover to flip up and cause jams. The next thing you're going to run into is your transfer roller, which is this one right here. What that does is transfers the booklet from the stitch to the fold. Also, it's a double action roller. It pushes against the set and holds it against the stop fingers in the back of the collator, so the booklet maker, to control your stitch position and fold position. These are your register pawls, and what they do is they pop up behind the booklet and push the booklet towards the stops to give you better registration. This is your non-op sheet guide. You can move that in and out depending on the size paper that you have, 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17. This is the entry sensor for the folder, and over here is the entry sensor for the stitcher. The entry sensor senses the booklet coming in and then sets off the timing, which adjusts your side jog and your stitch, which is also controlled by the collator. These your Horizon systems have two sets of rollers, 4 rollers total. 2 large fold rollers in the bottom, which are controlled pressure-wise from this lever here. And then there's 2 rollers in the top, 1 rubber, 1 metal, which are spring-loaded. And you can adjust the tension by the spring in the back. Just look behind the roller and you'll see a tab with 3 holes in it. It's in the center of your screen right now. And you can pull it tighter or less depending on the thickness of the booklet and what you're trying to accomplish fold-wise. It has 1 on each side. These are your transfer rollers, which ride on the exit belts of the folder and transfer the booklet from the folder into the trimmer. This is the handle that you use to move your stitch head back and forth. You loosen your stitch head lock down here at the bottom, and then you turn this dial and it'll move your stitch head left and right to change the position of your stitch. Underneath here is a roller that the knob that you use to rotate the booklet maker, but you can't rotate it if the booklet maker's on. So you have to turn the booklet maker off and release the clutch before you can use that one. Over here you have your fold position, and then over here you have the adjustment for your guide depending on whether you're folding or you're going straight through. This lever here locks your fold gate. You loosen this to adjust your fold position. This knob down here at the bottom adjusts your blade. This has a tucker blade in it that pops up and pushes the paper in between the rollers. That's actually your fold blade. With that knob in the center of your screen, you can raise and lower the blade as needed to produce different types of booklets. On the control panel, you have the manual stitch button. You push that to stitch. This knob here you turn to adjust the timing of the back jogger and the delay of the back jogger. It also activates the multiple jog. So you can turn that on and have it jog as a pattern, like that, you see right there. Or you can turn this knob all the way to the left, and it locks the back jogger in one position so it only does 1 jog. The next switch here, this is top position is stitch, bottom position is jog only, no staple. Bottom position is pass-through. What that means is that it won't staple or fold or staple the unit. It flies right through the system. This is your manual setup. When your machine is stopped, if you push it, it pushes your guides over and your back jogger, so you can use that for setting the tension of your side jog and back jog. This button you push to stop the run. Like if you're during the run, you can push that stop button, and what that'll do is it stops the collator from feeding. Now if you have a VAC 100 or even an MC80, they all have remote controls that you can magnetize and stick up here or up here on the stitcher trimmer and control the collator that way. This is your run and stop for the main motor of the booklet maker. This is your manual fold button. You push that to manually fold the set. This dial adjusts how long the exit conveyor runs. So the more you sweep it to the right, the further it runs each time a booklet is folded. And this is your main emergency stop button. You push it in and you have to turn it in the direction of the arrow to release it. In the trimmer, you have similar to the weights that are in the folder, only these you have to unscrew and then put in these other holes if you feel you need less pressure. This is the adjustment for your trim position by loosening the lock lever here and then you turn the dial and rotate it and adjust it to the scale, whatever size trim. When you see the reading there, that's actually what your booklet's going to end up size-wise. This is a removable guide plate which can be removed and adjusted higher and lower by this screw. What that does, it holds a booklet down. Like when you're doing a large booklet like 11 by 17, it'll allow you to push that, hold that booklet down and push it in underneath. This is your safety breaker right here. As you can see, it says breaker right there. What that happens is there's a jam, or for any reason the cut motor is restricted, it'll pop that breaker. These are adjustment springs, and what you read your manual, but in your manual it'll tell you this is adjusting for thicker or thinner booklets. It raises and lowers the pressure plate underneath. This small screw right here raises and lowers the guide retainer. What that is a little arm that goes down there and actually lifts the eject rollers up. What happens is if the eject rollers are all the way down and you have a thick booklet, sometimes the booklets can run into the eject roller, and instead of coming out, will jam in that position. So you have to raise that roller up a little bit to allow a gap between the roller and the belt underneath so that the booklet will go underneath, and then of course once the booklet reaches underneath and it gets fed through. Inside here you have this carrier, which these are carriers with steel roller balls in them, and what they do is they push down on the booklet and allow the belts to feed the booklet out. It has one on each side. Right here is your sensor. When this is triggered up like that, it tells the trimmer that there's a set in there ready to be trimmed, and that's your gate activating switch. And the trimmer will not activate unless that's tripped. There's really not a lot in the way of adjustments on the trimmer, but that's basically it. And anytime you lift or lower the safety covers, of course, the machine will shut off. This is your guide rod. This is where your wheels will go back and forth, the wheels that catch the booklet and advance it into the conveyor. This is the umbilical cord for the conveyor, and that plugs into the booklet maker, and it will be marked where it plugs in, because one plugs into the booklet maker, the trimmer plugs in to the booklet maker, and so does the conveyor, not to the trimmer. This is your trim retaining drawer. This is where all your trim confetti comes after your machine trims your booklets. Of course, that needs to be emptied as needed. You have a little window on the end there so you can see through. This down here is a knob that allows you to move the carrier of the rollers, the carrier of the pressure roller unit on the trimmer up and down, but it does not allow you to manually cut. You can only raise it and lower the pressure unit. This is your non-resettable counter. This tells you the total counts on the whole system, and it can't be reset, so whatever it says is what the total that the machine has trimmed or cut. This is a manual activating button for your trimmer. If you push this button, it will manually trim one cycle. This is your power button. When you push that button, the trimmer starts running. This stops it. This is your emergency stop. When you push it down, it's locked down. Nothing will happen. You can't start it or run it until you turn it, pull up, and release it. This is your main control for turning the trimmer on and off, and that pretty much covers the trimmer. Now you do have leveling bolts on the trimmer. All horizons are 3-point leveled. So you have two here and then one in the center inside here. A little bit difficult to get to. What I do is I use a couple of extensions and a 17mm socket and just reach down there and run that bolt up to level it. You don't have to, you don't have to raise it very high. All you have to do is raise it high enough to where the wheels are 1/16 of an inch off the ground. All that does is just keeps the wheels off the ground so they're not rolling around all the time. The same thing for the booklet maker. It's a 3-point leveling. And the tower as well. So each tower, collator, booklet maker, and trimmer will have 3 leveling bolts. And that pretty much covers our Get Acquainted video. This is just a quick rundown, just to give you an idea what everything does, how it works. And you can always refer back to this anytime that you need to. If you have any questions, you can always reach us at lcegraphics.com on the web, or call us at 1-800-634-2176. Thank you.